his people for 40 years in the wilderness, Deuteronomy 1:3. Now, this isn't even all of them. There's a lot more stories that we find that basically parallels the Bible, or the Bible parallels Greek mythology, and we can see, where it came from. It's clear as day what happened, and it's not going to be easy for people to see it unless you go back and look at Greek mythology and start reading the stories. But then again, you have to have a knowledge of the Bible and biblical stories, which is why I tell you guys to read a book for you to pick up on that. So it's something that's easy. It's just not hard at all for people to really see it when you know the stories and when you read them and then you parallel with the Bible. And then what these people have done was basically take that way of writing, the way they wrote back then, the way they even spoke, and it's the same as the Old Testament. So we can see what they did and where the stories came from. And again, you got to go back and look at the fact that the Bible, it changed so much. It changed a lot. And when you add it to actual history, it all fits. The fact that, as I said, during this time that the book was put together, you have just so happened to have the Greeks ruling Israel and Egypt. Like, come on, step out of it. They are ruling Israel and Egypt during this time that we get the book. It's put together in Alexandria, Egypt, where the Great Library is. They are in control. You have a Ptolemy, ruling in Egypt. Or Ptolemy, however you want to pronounce it. It's common sense to put it together. So everything that these people keep coming out of nowhere, because I done heard so much backlash and I done been cussed out so many times by so many people who just swear they got it, but can't give you one shred of proof. It's all coming from a book where the book itself is in question. Their proof is the Bible itself. Nobody, I don't care who you go and get or talk to, is going to come up and give you proof like I just gave you that gives validity to the book. But we can go back and prove 100% these stories existed long before any proven anything we have biblical. Plain and simple. Put it together. Plain and simple. Who gave us the book? The Greeks. Who was ruling around that time? The Greeks. Who was the story mimicking? Greek mythology. Greek stories. It's crazy. So when I talked about in the ancient history series about the wars of the Diadochi and the conquest of the Hebrew Israelites, and basically they're giving you what they did as far as their conquest of North Africa and African lands. Plain and simple. They wrote it because there's only one people who could have wrote it or who could have that kind of insight during that time in that area. We didn't write it because we would be the only ones that's up there that would have that kind of vision to see what was going on. And there's no mention of no damn Jews or Hebrews from anybody else. And the wars don't even mention them when we know the wars was between the Greeks themselves, the successors of Alexander. So who was up there in real history? What's going on in real history? The Greeks are up there. And then they put this together. Now, again, if you didn't see a lot of my older videos, you probably don't understand why. The reason why is this. One, because you got to understand first, the people that was in that territory, in that land that we call Israel, was ancient Egyptian, black African people. That's who was there. Plain and simple, as I've shown you, they keep finding artifacts up there because the Egyptians ruled that land, which is why you have to ask yourself, even if, the Exodus happened, and let's say they did wander for 40 years and eventually lead, find themselves back in Israel, the Egyptians still was ruling. Plain and simple. So why would you come into a land that's ruled by Egyptians? So when they telling you all these stories about, the Israelites going into these lands and conquering these people and killing the Amalekites and all these people and taking Israel, taking those lands, this is African people's territory. So, the Egyptians was there. There's African people that was there. We can't find nowhere in history that shows us where you have these people called Hebrews and Jews taking lands from the Jebusites or the Hivites or the Perizzites or any of these people that they mention, let alone find those people themselves. We can't find nothing from these people. They only exist in the book. So, causing the question, the stories that for some reason people want to believe and jump on so much, there's no validity to it. There's no proof to it. And again, when you look at a lot of the Greek mythology stories, that's where they got it from. It's clear as day that you can look and see that. Now, those Egyptians or Africans that was in Israel during that time, when the Persians first took over, it was civil war. Basically, them trying to basically take back, the land from the Persians. And during that time, they fighting, and a lot of people are leaving Israel and leaving ancient Egypt, to flee into, Southern Africa. And eventually, Persians gain control. Greeks come in and take it from the Persians. You still have black Africans there, and them trying to instill and change the beliefs of these people. And as I always talk about, they do so through generational indoctrination. You start with the children. It's the same way they do it today. The kids learn something. We die and we move on. The kids move up and they pass that knowledge on, and they grow up with that knowledge, and that knowledge becomes fact. So now the later generations are doing what they were taught to be doing from a young age. So whatever the people was believing as far as having knowledge of ancient Egypt and what was really going on, well, by the time they died off, the children was bringing up that religion and bringing up that knowledge and keeping it as if, it was real, that it's real information. But what was going on was you had Hellenization, which Hellenization is what they tell you is it's basically them instilling Greek beliefs and what have you into the people that was in those lands that they took over during the War of the Diadochis. The thing is this: if that was the case, how come none of these people end up following any kind of Greek, mythology or Greek religion? Yet all these people end up being Jews or Christians in these lands. Because that's what they was passing down. This is what they were spreading. There was no damn Greek mythology. It was them enforcing and instilling Judaism, and later on, when the Romans, Christianity. So when you have the Hebrew Israelites, when they go back and they look, and they say, Greek, the Hebrews or the Jews, the doctrine is old and it goes back far. It does not go back before the 4th century BCE, plain and simple. It does not go back before the time the Greeks ruled Egypt and Israel. It don't. So if you go back and you trace it BC, fine. It's going to stop at the 4th century. And probably sooner than that, when you pay attention. But we give them around that time frame, basically in the 300s BCE, when the Greeks was ruling. So you can find that history, you can find that information, you can find stuff that traces back then, but you won't find anything before that, and you won't find any real concrete proof of the stories itself. Just the fact that you had people walking around talking about this religion. And that's it. There's no proof, there's no validity to it. A lot of the stuff that was actually going on had to do with other stuff, non-relating to the Bible. But when you have after the fact, vis-a-vis the King James Version and all these other books that was written after the fact, that they can basically say this happened, even though they're writing the book after the fact, then you can put anything. You could put anything, I can write a book today about something I'm going to do 2 years from now. As long as I do it, the book is valid. So what I try to do is get a lot of people to go back and look at real ancient history. Forget about biblical history. Not going to find anything in that. As I said, the Bible is not backed up by proven history. It is not proven, which is why it requires faith. Plain and simple. You can't prove it. So the best thing to do is when you start going back and looking at real proven history and try to compare it to the Bible, it's not going to match up. It's just not going to match up. You had a people during a certain period of time conquering the known world. The Greeks, you had the Persians, you had the Romans, plain and simple. Later on the Arabs, and then you look today and you see, who is where they are, who is at the top of the power structure and how they got there. And as I said, it goes all the way back to that point, even though it's hard for people to believe, but it's true. It goes all the way back there. and they have been building power, and it's been a slow, long takeover to put them in the position that they are in. Biblical religion, the Abrahamic religion, is just a tool that they use to get them to where they are at today. So again, a lot of you guys doing your research, as I said, you have to go back and look at real history. A lot of people are going back to try to find out what people said instead of looking at actual history. Because remember, no matter, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, these people are talking about stuff that's supposed to have actually happened. So in your research, okay, well, let me go back and find it. And if you go back and look, the only reference you're going to get for these religious accounts is in religious books, not from another people. And that's the thing. And that's how we tell, we can't prove it, because any of the wars, or the great wars, and a lot of stuff that happened back in ancient times, guess what? People talked about it. They wrote about it. We can find the bodies. We can find everything. It's all there. All that stuff is there. Except for the biblical accounts. The whole wars with the Israelites or what have you. You can't find the stuff. So you got to really take that into consideration and do your research and really pay attention and look. They gave us the book. It's given to us by the Greeks. The whole King James Version, as I always talk about, is King James's version. Plain and simple. If you look at the Codex Sinaiticus, as I always talk about, when I said before that, Deuteronomy is probably one of the oldest. The only actual proof we have of the Septuagint is a little fragment of Deuteronomy 23, I believe it is. But, if you go back, you have Codex Sinaiticus, and they only have a few chapters of Deuteronomy. It's like 3, 4, I believe it's 28 through 30. And that's it. And as I talked about, Deuteronomy 28:68 and the oldest manuscript don't say the same as the King James Version, because that's his version. So even when you get that book, which we all grew up on that, none of us grew up on none of these ancient manuscripts and what they said. It's a totally different book we grew up on. And as I talked about before as well, how come we got so many different books? Look at all these books that we got and all these people who wrote Bibles, different Bibles with different stuff. You got to pay attention to that. You got to take that into consideration. And the biggest part of all is, where's God in all this? Where is God preserving the Bible and making sure we get his word, the way we're supposed to get it? And we got all the stuff that we can't prove. We have errors and mistakes, which I didn't even touch on that. The fact that, we have so many mistakes and errors when they put together the Bible, because when we go back and look at the older manuscripts, they are flawed. And, what is that? You got stuff that was added, stuff that's taken away, so on and so forth. It's a lot. It's a lot. And no sane person or anybody that has a rational mind can look at all this overwhelming evidence against the book and just decide to accept it. Now, the book is giving you truth, plain and simple. That's one thing I will tell you. It is giving you the truth disguised. It's a deceptive book and it's a truthful book. The book itself is duality. It's yin yang, it's good, bad, evil, happy, whatever you want to put. It's a dualistic book that is giving you the truth. It's giving it to you in parables. And it's all dealing with stuff that ultimately traces back to ancient Egypt when you pay attention. So science, math, everything is in that book. It's all there. And you got to know how to break it apart and understand, what it's talking about. So as I talked about in the DVD put out just down on Afterlife, you got to understand the role that you play. You got to understand the role of, God, Jesus, Satan, and the disciples. As I said, God is you, plain and simple. God represents your all-powerful subconscious mind. Jesus represents the part of your subconscious that's trying to get into communication with you, that's trying to teach you and get you to join him. Remember, I talked about yin and yang. You got to understand how to bring the subconscious and the conscious mind together. This is what Jesus is trying to tell you in the book. He's trying to get you to join him. You are the disciples as well. Because the disciples are doing what? They are following Jesus, trying to understand what Jesus is talking about. Jesus is basically telling them, you're going to know this. This is that. And they're like, man, we don't know what you're talking about. How can we know this stuff? It's your subconscious trying to speak to you and tell you what's going on. As I said, who are the 12 disciples? The 12 signs of the zodiac, representing all of us. We are all represented on that zodiac. Satan, you as well, represents the negative side of you, the bad side of you, the side that's against you. You're anti-self. We are all anti-self. We are all pro-self. You do things that go against your well-being. You do things that's for your well-being. You do things that you completely should not do that's going to mess with you and harm you. And, you do things that's good. It's just that part of you that won't allow you to be perfect that you have to master and beat. Plain and simple. I always talk about why don't God just kill Satan in the Bible? Because he is Satan as well as God. It's a dualistic book. Jesus is trying to prepare you for the afterlife, trying to prepare you to be a part of him, to be one with your subconscious, to become one. And it's deep. It's a lot to it. A lot of people are just not going to grasp that unless you understand, what this stuff is all about. As I talked about in the DVD, understanding when Jesus says in John 14:3, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I shall come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, you may be also. And you got to think about that. If I come again. Now, when is Jesus supposed to come again? At the end, right? End times. This is something that's so personalized when you really think about it, what's being said. I'm going to come again and receive you unto myself. First, we're going to go and prepare a place for you. What place is he going to prepare that's not already been prepared? Ain't heaven supposed to already exist, and it's supposed to be, angels and a whole bunch of stuff going on in heaven? So what place is he going to prepare for you? If heaven already exists and God's supposed to be there, everything's supposed to be taken care of. What place is he going to prepare for you? And as I said, you got to think about the dream world. You have to think about meditation. You have to think about when you daydream. Where do you go? You have a dream where you have a whole entire city and a whole bunch of stuff going on in your dream. When you go to sleep, that place is already prepared for you. You're in there and you think that's, real life and what's going on, but it's not. It's something that's controlled by your subconscious who's trying to get you to understand what's going on. That is the Jesus part of you. Jesus is trying to contact you and get into communication with you, which is you yourself, trying to get you to understand what's going on. So when it says I want to go and prepare a place for you, every night a place is prepared for you to go. I'm going to come again. That's your death, and receive you unto myself. Receive your consciousness, your true energy unto his self or herself, which is why Jesus is shown as androgynous when you pay attention, because there's either masculine energy or feminine energy. And you become one and you move forward if you make it to that point. If you don't, you're going to be dragged by your negative part. Hell, Satan, which this is hell when you understand the concept. We talked about all this in the Afterlife DVD, went in deep on that. But you got to understand the metaphorical part of the book and what all of these things is talking about and what it plays to. And understand that what they did was take the Greek mythological stories that's basically telling you the same shit. It's telling you the same stuff. Same dualistic story, same metaphorical stuff, just different characters, so on and so forth, that they plagiarized, as well as stories from ancient Egypt, stories from ancient Sumeria, Babylonia, so on and so forth, to give you, the Bible. All of it is dealing with dualistic stuff, dealing with your energy, your mortality, your physical self, your spiritual self, so on and so forth. And as I said, a lot of people think this stuff is a joke. A lot of people are just going to be stuck and lost and have no idea of the regret that they're going to have at some point. And it's just going to be crazy. But it's deep stuff. And I challenge a lot of people who I talk to, who I debate with on this information, to basically stop bullshitting. Go and look. Be real. Don't go look for the pro-Bible scholars, or don't go look for stuff that's going to be speaking to your ego. Truth. Go and look for the truth. Go and search. Use rational thinking and use that common sense that you have to put the pieces together. If you do that, there's no way. Man, forget that. If you just read the damn book. Just read the book. Like I said, if you make the first Samuel, you're no longer a Christian. I guarantee you that. If you read Genesis to just First Samuel, where we stopped there, where we at so far, is over. You're going to be like, nah, bullshit. One, the Hebrew shit is going to be gone because you're going to understand that ain't no people in the world that stupid. And two, you're going to realize how fucking crazy and psycho God is and how sick he is. And that's definitely not something you should follow. You got to understand the metaphor it's giving you. As I said, Satan has not appeared and done anything sick on this planet that we can see, but we have. Mankind has done sick, evil stuff on this planet that represents the evil that's in us all, not this one being that we want to pour all our bad shit into, you know. So it's a lot of deep stuff, and it's a lot of videos I have out, over 700 videos on YouTube now. A lot of stuff I get into with this, and it's going to be a lot on the website to really touch on a lot of this stuff more, to get people in that understanding. So Merkabah Academy definitely going to help a lot of new people. I have a lot of people that I talk to that's Christians that's really coming here. It's going to come to that site to really get an understanding on, you know, a lot of people want to know what to teach their kids and just, you know, have the information for themselves. So we're going to get into all that. Again, the book will be releasing June 21st. If you pre-ordered, they're going to be shipped out June 17th. Anybody who's waiting for flash drives, they're on the way. Thanks for your patience on that matter as well. But I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch. And thanks to everybody who's been supporting. And I'll see you guys next video.